everyone wants to know, yo, can I come to Baltimore and get a house for $1? To that, what do you say?
Oh, Baltimore can be built up, but at the same time, we've been waiting on Baltimore for 20, 30 years.
Lord. Hey, what's going on? Welcome to another episode of the OPA to OPM podcast. I'm your host, Dave Mill, my co-host, Alex and Markel. What's going on?
Yo, what it do?
Hey, how y'all feeling today?
It's another great one, another great day. We got stuff going on, but we're going.
Oh, yeah.
It's going to be a very insightful episode. I'm really excited for this one.
Yeah,
I'm blessed.
It's going to be
That's all
a
I can
great,
say.
exactly. It's going to be a great episode, and we're going to definitely touch on what you got going on again.
Yeah.
But we have a very, very special guest, someone who's been a mentor to me and Alex, and someone who's very knowledgeable on the subject matter we're going to speak on today. And Mr. Tony Teller, how you feeling?
Hey, I'm great, brother. I'm in here.
I'm great. Thank you for coming, man.
Most definitely.
Thank you for your time, man. Your time is very valuable, so we very appreciate that.
Yeah.
And what is it that you do, and how long have you been doing it?
So I love when people ask that question because, I'm a serial entrepreneur.
Okay.
I've been doing entrepreneurial things since I was about 12 years old.
Wow.
My first business, I had a grass cutting business that started as a grass cutting business before it started as home services, where I had all my friends in the neighborhood working for me.
Okay.
So we was painting houses and cutting grass and doing all that good stuff. And that evolved over my early years into eventually where I was always considered the smart thug where I grew up at, right?
Smart thug, okay.
Yeah, because I grew up in Southeast D.C.,
I couldn't see that.
So it was crazy because back then, I'm messing with computers and stuff before computers was huge.
Right.
But I always had the latest and greatest software. People ask me where I got it from. I'm gonna hopped on a bulletin board service. I'm not sure y'all don't know what that is, but so it was a little bit of a different game back then. And when the internet first kind of showed up around about 94, 95, I had started messing around with the internet way back then. All for me. And in 99, when I graduated high school, ended up going to college, kept up with the graphic design, came back to the area after leaving school fairly early and being employed at Kinko's, which now everybody knows as FedEx.
Right.
Became like signing banners and a manager, an assistant manager, and that grew. And I was looking at the money I was making. I was like, I'm not getting paid enough. I was making like $45,000 a year. And outside of that, I had all this other background. So basically at about 20 years old, I launched something called samedayflyers.com and sonicprint.com. And that took off.
Okay.
That took off. So that was at 20 years old. That took off. But prior to that, the previous year at 19, my father, who had been in real estate since I was a kid as a real estate agent, actually had helped me buy my first property. So I bought my first property at 19 years old. When I bought that first property, we ended up fixing it up. It was a VA foreclosure. And back then, you could actually finance with VA even if you weren't a veteran.
Damn.
Correct.
Damn.
So if it was a foreclosure. So I basically got 100% financing on that property. We fixed it up out of pocket, and I ended up making my first major check, which was like $12,000.
At 19.
At 19.
That's a lot of money for a 19-year-old.
Right.
No
So, seeing $12,000 from that property at the same time working at Kinko's, I'm like, 45, $12,000, something not adding up. So, Kinko's actually, I took part of that $12,000 and launched samedayflyers.com. It took off. I started making about $2,000 a week from my 1-bedroom apartment.
Wow. Let's get into like what we want to really talk about today. Because Baltimore is in the national news right now. Not just because of the unfortunate bridge incident, but because $1 houses. Got a lot of people, like I'm seeing IG flooded from national influencer, real estate influencer talking about this. So everyone wants to know, yo, Can I come to Baltimore and get a house for $1? To that, what do you say?
So, first of all, let me tell you all, and I'm gonna look right at you, right? Baltimore is great, but know who you're following and who you're listening to. Unfortunately, there's a lot of fake gurus out here and actual gurus out here that's giving out a lot of misinformation. Okay. When you're not intricately involved in the city and truly understand a market, you shouldn't necessarily speak on it until you truly know. So let's dig into it. 100% the program is real.
Mm-hmm.
The Dollar House program in Baltimore was actually around in the 1970s. It's the first time it was around. And I was told by a gentleman that he was the head of the inspection office in Baltimore. There's one developer back in the 70s that purchased about 150 houses in Federal Hill back then for $1.
Wait, all together?
150 houses in Federal Hill,
So he bought the houses for $150.
$150.
That's crazy.
That developer now is one of the largest in Baltimore City.
I bet.
That family's billion-dollar family. So it is a great opportunity. However, let's put it in perspective for today. Okay. Head of City Council, Nick Mosby, he proposed this program slightly different than the way it's rolled out. Back in, I think it was 2020, 2021, it was proposed that it would be $1 to lease a property for 2 years. You would lease the property for 2 years, and then during that time, you had the right to fix it up. That's the way the program was proposed back then. It ended up being the way it is now. So you can acquire a property for $1 as an owner-occupant if you're planning to occupy the home. You have 12 months to fix that home up and move in. Let's talk about some of the challenges. Okay. I live about 2 blocks away from the permit office. On average, it takes me just to get a permit for one of my projects about 30 to 45 days. Okay. On average, it's going to take a person for these major projects a minimum of 45 to 60 days to get a building permit.
2 months.
That does not include the time frame to actually acquire plans for your project, because all of these projects will need a structural engineer and an architect to actually do plans. That being the case, it's more than likely going to be 3 to 4 months before you actually can start construction. So yes, you can get a house for $1, but you have to know what you're doing. Now, I recently just put out a video on my IG, and I was out at 3 different properties where I show people what they look like, what the neighborhoods look like. One, to give you an idea, had a tree growing inside the house.
Yep. Seen those.
Yep. Another one, it certainly told me the house was there. 602 Carey. I go there and there's no houses anywhere to be seen.
On the block.
On the block. So again, if you don't know, you don't know.
So question, is this something where you can choose, or is it a lottery of where you get to acquire that house?
So there's a few qualifications. The first thing is, it's going to be a challenge for most, is you have to have $90,000 in liquid capital as a homeowner or an investor to be able to purchase one of these homes, okay?
Is there a certain time period? Because like when you go to buy a house, they want to see it, like just say, hey, let it season for a certain
This
amount
is
of time.
before, there's no timeline, but before your application is approved for you to actually buy a home that's available. Now, there's a total of about 900 houses that's going to be sold, okay? Of course, we talked about this number of 13,000. Understand, Baltimore City only controls of that 13,536
Less than
about
1,000.
1,000 houses.
Damn.
Okay, they only control, that means they only own about 1,000
Yeah, the
houses.
rest of them are privately owned.
They're
That's
privately
what I'm
owned.
saying. What?
Okay. Baltimore City has put in new guidelines where they're looking to increase the property taxes on those vacant homes and blighted homes, so they can put enough liens on them, so they then can take them through a special docket that they created at the court last year to expedite basically taking these homes. But there's a couple challenges with that because they have a limited budget too. When you take a home, you don't just get it for free.
Right.
You still got liens and other stuff to pay off. So with that being the case, there's about 900 homes that's going to be available for $1 for owner occupants and for community land trusts.
Right.
Okay. Nonprofits are going to be able to purchase those same homes if they want to for $500. Okay. Investors are going to have to wait 90 days before 90 days to give owner occupants the opportunity to buy first.
And Baltimore residents, correct?
And Baltimore residents.
When
right.
does this start?
This program has actually already started, so you can start submitting your application now.
Oh.
Okay, so you can start submitting your application now. As of April 1st, they're going to start reviewing applications from April 1st through July of those applications that have come in.
So real quick to the money situation, because I was just talking to some friends, like some people that like actually well connected, and they're just like, yo, these guys at these upper echelon statuses and people who've come from money, they just get a gift, right? Is there a task force, or is there a way that they're checking to see where the money's coming from, or is it something where it's like, all right, as long as you just got the money, we don't care where it came from, you good?
I can't tell you that because I don't necessarily know.
Okay.
If you have to source the funds in a particular way. I do know that you can also participate. So, for instance, like they have, if you go through Live Baltimore, you can qualify for a grant as a Baltimore City resident called Buy the Block. Okay, that particular grant will give you $20,000. Okay, so that means now instead of you needing 90, now you're down to 70. There's another organization, Neighborhood Services of Baltimore. You can get a $20,000 rapid rehab loan from them. Okay, so that's another $20,000. Now you're down to 50. Okay, in targeted neighborhoods, healthy neighborhoods, they have 72 particular neighborhoods. If a home falls in one of those neighborhoods, you can get a purchase and rehab loan from them if you qualify.
So you can get a loan to do these.
Potentially. Now, but this is the other challenge. One of the major challenges is we all have heard of appraisals, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Many of these neighborhoods, it's going to be a challenge for these homes to actually appraise for the amount of money that it's going to cost to renovate them.
Yeah.
On average, most of these homes are 1,500 plus square feet. Okay. Right now, the average cost to build in DC is about $200 to $225 a square foot. In Baltimore City, on the low end, if a home has floor joists and stuff that you can use, as I said, some of these houses, they got trees growing up in them, right? But on the low end, if you got some bones to work with there, you're looking at $100 a square foot. So 1,500 square foot house is 150 grand. Just that's before your soft costs.
If you don't have any bones,
Right.
then you're looking at what, 150?
You're probably looking at $200,000 to renovate. You know, because you're looking at 150, maybe as much as $175 a square foot. Listen, there are opportunities.
Yeah.
There are opportunities. You know, I was speaking with someone on Sunday. We were out looking at properties, and she's from Baltimore, and she was sharing with me about a family friend of hers that purchased one of these dollar houses years ago, right? That home, I think she said, was 4,000 square feet. It's worth about $1 million now. Right. So it's possible.
Right. It's possible.
It's possible, but it's not for everybody. You need to have the right intentions. As an investor, if you're going to do it as an investor, you need to have the intention, not to fix and flip this bad boy. You need to probably have the intention that first thing, I'm going to rent it.
Right.
It's going to be a buy and hold. Now, if you come out the other side and it appraises, then you can fix and flip it.
Right.
But as an investor, buy and hold, as an owner occupant, you have to occupy the home for at least 5 years. I think they're going to put deed restrictions in place, meaning that if you sell it within that 5-year period of time, a lot of the equity is going to probably go back to the city.
Right.
They'll probably put some other type of building license restriction on it because you're supposed to have a rental license.
Scott.
Yes. So again, you know, Westmore is from Baltimore City. So Westmore being from Baltimore City, we're really in a scenario where you have someone that has an interest in seeing Baltimore City do well. In addition, for anyone that's been watching the news reference to Francis Scott Key Bridge and the collision there, you may have noticed that Brandon Scott, the mayor of Baltimore, and Westmore are very close. That's his protege. So when you see that, you see the area of opportunity. There's a lot of money already coming into the city. And as that money flows into the city, we're going to see great things happen. We'll see great things happen. So I'm really excited to see what's going to happen in particular, the next 3 years. Now, one of the major things that could set us back is if nationally or internationally we have a major economic downturn. Baltimore City is in a very fragile state.
Okay.
And what I mean by that is that it's picking up momentum, but it's almost like a freight train. Until it really gets up to speed, you need all of that power to keep pushing. And right now, it's being pushed. But if we unfortunately have an economic downturn, a lot of that momentum is gonna go away. A lot of the investors can disappear. A lot of the developers can disappear. A lot of the government money can disappear.
Right. I will say this as something, because I'm putting my money on Baltimore.
Yes.
Right. Because I just feel, especially for Black folks, like it's the last frontier on the East Coast.
That's it.
It's the last frontier.
That's
DC is gone. Philly, damn near gone.
Gone.
New York, gone.
Yep.
So, like, if you're interested in real estate and you want to change your family, economic condition, honestly, Black folks on the East Coast economic condition, like, honestly, you say it's in a fragile state, like some of the developers may go. I say, man, get the fuck out. Honestly,
Yeah.
Hey, Black folks, let's go. Let's take this motherfucker. Let's take this city.
And I'm okay with that attitude, but I will say this. You want the large money because you want to follow the money.
Right.
So when you follow the money, you rarely lose. So if you see a neighborhood where they're getting ready to put up 50 units, 100 units, follow the money, buy in the neighborhood. Why? Because that means the roads are going to improve. That means there's going to be street lighting there. So you want to follow the money, right? Don't be a lone ranger. Yeah. I've been there. I've done that. I've learned that lesson. I've been in neighborhoods where, I've lost money simply because I was first. I've been in neighborhoods where I made money and set the market price where other investors came back and killed it because I was the lone ranger. So you got to make sure you follow the money. But I will say this. You're on to something because it is the last frontier. Baltimore City is the last frontier on the entire East Coast. There is no other major city like Baltimore. It is the largest shipping port on the East Coast. You have the most automobiles delivered in Baltimore City than anywhere else in the entire United States. So there is a lot of economic activity there. Under Armour is based there as they continue to grow. They just issued Steph Curry his own brand inside of Under Armour. There's going to be opportunities in the city. John Hopkins is continue to expand. There's many other hospitals there. As you mentioned, tech is potentially coming. So there's opportunities, but as a whole, it's still in a fragile state because we're in a fragile state as a country right now.
Yeah.
Right.
I was going to say, it's not really an opinion or to disagree or agree, but I guess more so a rebuttal. Is it necessarily bad that if DC didn't, not DC, but Baltimore didn't stay as that, last Black home front? Because, we got, what was it when they say,
Gentrification.
Yeah, gentrification and everything, but the economic benefits that have came from it, the decrease in crime and, all those things is, I would say has a more positive effect than negative effect on the city. I think it's just more so how you was just saying, we gotta be educated and know not only where to follow money, but how to follow the money and what to do, when those type of opportunities arise. Because the same things what's going on in DC, we just didn't know. To buy the property, or our families that own most of those properties in DC got brought out for such a low price because they got waived this fat check that they ain't know 5 years later your $300,000 property is really worth $1.2 million, but you didn't have the proper education, so you jumped the gun. So that's where more so my mind is at. I can't really say like, gosh, you would hope and want to see an all-black community or all-black city, but it's not going to happen.
So
it's not realistic to me.
I'll let Tony answer that, then I'll because I have an opinion on what you just said.
But it's just not realistic.
It's not going to happen. It's not realistic. So you got two types of gentrification. This is where most of black people in particular get it wrong. Right? Okay? We think gentrification just means that there's a racial component to it. Gentrification is also a major income component to it.
Educate me, my brother.
What does that mean? Let me give you an example. Okay, just because there is going to be gentrification in Baltimore, and there is going to be gentrification, it's already occurring.
Right.
What that really means in particular for Baltimore, where almost 80% of the population, it's crazy, almost 80% of the population rents. Okay, it means that unfortunately, most of those renters are going to get pushed out. That doesn't mean that black people that are middle income, upper income are not going to come in and take advantage of buying here.
Raise the property taxes and
exactly.
tax base.
That has happened in DC. In DC, there is a lot of black money here. People say this is like black Atlanta in DC with degrees, right? It's one of the highest, most educated places on earth in Washington, D.C. And you have a huge African-American population here, but they're well educated and they are high income compared to the rest of the country. Prince George's County, it's the wealthiest, predominantly African-American county in the entire country.
Second now.
Yeah, Charles
County has.
Are you going to count Waldorf now?
and simply, I'm going to tell you why. It's the same thing that we're referring to here. Because Waldorf in Charles County used to be what? Predominantly white. Predominantly white.
Man, was it?
But the major thing that occurred, they started building houses that were less expensive. And individuals got priced out of D.C., Prince George's County. And they said, I'm going to move out here even if I got to sit in traffic because the major arteries are always clogged. I get more for my bang for my buck. Yeah. Okay, so that's why now you got individuals that still work in D.C. that live all the way in Charles County. So it's the same thing in Baltimore City. And I alluded to this earlier. I said there's one thing that could be a major game changer for Baltimore City. Megalith and high-speed train. Elon Musk was a part of the initial program to put high-speed train from basically all the way from Richmond all the way up to New York
City.
To New York City. Okay, it's a heavy lift for the federal government because a lot of private land involved. It's a major challenge. Now, Amtrak is already working on a high-speed train. However, anytime I'm over in Europe and I had the opportunity to catch the high-speed train from London to Paris. Okay, anytime you're on a high-speed train going 200 miles an hour and you're able to get somewhere in a few hours, that's that far away. It's a game changer. So if you're able to get from Baltimore City to DC in 15 to 30 minutes, that's faster than a car.
I would say 15 minutes because you can get, depending who's driving.
You cannot get from Baltimore City anymore. I could do it when I was at Morgan in 99, but now it is an average because I used to make the drive. I put 70,000 miles on my car in the course of 18 months going back and forth. It's 45 minutes minimum to get from DC to Baltimore City in a car now because of traffic. So if you eliminate that, if you can get to major employment centers, Philadelphia, DC,
New York.
or New York City,
An hour or less.
in an hour or less, where individuals can make that income and just like in Charles County, buy property at this much lower price point, it's going to redevelop the city overnight.
So it's like why people because I got a lot of I work for government as well.
Yep.
Yo, a lot of my coworkers get the salary here, and if they go on telework or not, they might move to Houston. But most of them recently have been buying all this property in West Virginia.
Yep.
I'm like, why y'all buying houses in West Virginia? And they're like, it's only an hour away. I'm like, nah. For
If
real?
you think back to something I said at the very beginning, when I was alluding to the fact that I was a mortgage loan officer that was doing loans in
DC.
Washington, D.C., making commissions that were equivalent to the prices of homes here while living somewhere where I was able to build my first 3,000 square foot house for $235,000.
That's where I bought mine.
Okay? And my monthly payment at that time was $1,400 a month. Okay?
Shit.
So when you think of it that way, you're like, okay, that is what I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking about. Because now you're talking about you can buy something in Baltimore City and you can own and be paying for a lot of square footage in a major city where eventually you will have entertainment, where eventually it won't be a food desert, where you will have all these other options to be able to enjoy life. But you're living for less than $2,000, $2,500 a month. I have a listing in DC right now. It's a 3-bedroom, 2.5 bath condo for $1.2 million.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sound about right.
Yeah, but you're gonna be able to get 3 times that square footage in Baltimore City for $250.
Exactly. I kind of want to touch on that what you said, Michael, as well. As Tony said, gentrification is not a bad thing, but at the end of the day, who said that black people can't participate in gentrification? Right? It's because it's being gentrified. Why can't I fix up the block? Why can't I, and then I'm fixing up the block for my people.
That's it.
I'm raising the property taxes. I'm raising the city tax base, by bringing in my people as well. So just because it's gentrification doesn't mean that black people are gonna get left behind.
And one thing I'm gonna just piggyback off of that real quick. So I'm one of the few realtors that just recently got certified, right? Real estate agents that just got certified as a Section 8. Most people know it as housing choice voucher realtor. What does that mean? In Baltimore City, Housing Authority has a program whereby an individual that has a housing choice voucher is able to buy a property using their voucher. How does that look? The government will pay whatever they were going to pay for rent for 15 years towards your mortgage on owning a property. The benefit of this program is that a person that they're trying to stop systemic issues with people that have basically been in a scenario where generation after generation it just goes back and on Section 8. They're trying to stop that. They're trying to let these individuals build equity, build something for their family. So that being the case, they're already coming up with ideas and programs to give individuals in Baltimore City the opportunity to participate, come out of that rental idea and move into ownership and be a part of the city growth. I think it's on us to educate. It's on us to make sure we help pull up the bottom in our community. And don't look for anybody else to do it. It's on us. It's on us. I mean, as African Americans, we have to take responsibility for us. Can't look for anybody else to do it. Yes, we're old stuff, but it's on us to make sure
It's a
we do
savior
it.
complex.
It's up to us to get our own reparations.
That's it.
Yeah, and that's all I was saying. More so, like I agree with you, like 1,000%. It's just more so, like to me, like I think from a logic point of view. So it's like I said, bro. For me, it was just like, is it realistic? I don't see it right now, but educational piece is the most important piece because, like you said, it's a lot of programs that we aren't aware of as a community, or it's a bunch of stuff that we lack financially as in the literacy space, educational wise. So
Let me give you a little piece of how simple this is, right? Baltimore City. let's say that you decide to go get a job at one of the hospitals, John Hopkins in particular, okay? You decide to work at John Hopkins regardless of what job you can get, janitor, cook, doesn't matter, whatever. You work there. Baltimore City has something called Live Near Where You Work. You can get $10,000 as an employee of the hospital. Then you can go buy a property in the city that qualifies for something called vacancy to value. That's another $10,000. Okay, so you got $20,000 to go buy a property.
You're giving me ideas, Tony.
Okay.
You're giving me ideas.
Right? Then you turn around and you say, hey, okay, well, I'm going to use this extra money because it's not going to all be needed for closing costs, and I'm going to buy down my interest rate as low as I can. Or I'm going to go over to, one of the other programs in the city. I got a lot of financing programs where you can get a below market interest rate. Healthy Neighborhoods being one of them. It's 1% lower than the market rate. So, you can set yourself up simply by making sure you're tapping in with individuals that have the right information. Stop relying on people that's not going to give you the full story, and work with individuals that can give you the full story and educate you as someone that's trying to get into the city.
Right.
So I kind of know, I know exactly what you're saying. Of course, this is our mentor, so we know what you're saying. We know how to find someone like you, obviously, but for the listeners and for the viewers, how would we go about doing that?
So first thing is, of course, you can always reach out to me. I'm everywhere on social media under Urban Life Expert, so you can definitely look that up. You also can tap in with Live Baltimore. That's another great resource. Just look up Live Baltimore. They're a great resource. They have access to all these programs. You can reach out to a local lender as well. You can go on Eventbrite, look for local real estate agents and real estate meetups that are having informational sessions. Attend those. You can find this information if you want the information. If you're on IG, TikTok, Twitter, LinkedIn, any of the services out there, go to YouTube and just look up Baltimore real estate.
Right.
All right. So my bad. I ain't even trying to cut you off, but that's how we kind of started the episode. How do you more so distinguish the difference between the false information and, the gurus and the real actual gurus?
Yeah, I
So
know, right?
it starts with a few simple questions. Have you been to the market? Do you invest in the market? Have you sold houses in the market? Do you live in the market? Okay. Ask those questions. Find out their background. Find out their history. There's a lot of individuals that are out here claiming that haven't done nothing. And then after that, ask them for receipts. How do you get receipts? Simple. Testimonials.
Right.
I'm sitting here with two people right now. You haven't been to my projects, but they've seen physically my projects.
Been in
the
a
city.
walkthrough.
Okay. The mill has sat in one of my properties where you could look up at the ceiling from the basement because there was nothing inside. And now it's a full house. So when you have real receipts, that's it.
The rest forward, because a lot of people have been basically going back and forth where it's like, oh, Baltimore can be built up, but at the same time, we've been waiting on Baltimore for 20, 30 years.
Longer than that, right?
Since the 80s.
It really goes way back before then. And it's crazy because I was sharing the history with someone, and any market that you go into, you really want to dig into the history of the market. Okay. And when I say the history, I'm not talking about the last 10, 15, 20 years. You really want to go back. So when we look back, going to 1910, where the whole city of Baltimore caught on fire. Most people don't realize that, right? And then you get into the civil rights movement where Dr. King was killed and you had the riots. Okay. So then right after the riots, where you got most of the city burnt down, then where most of the country had a crack epidemic, in Baltimore, you had a heroin epidemic. So you had all these individuals in the 70s into the 80s addicted to heroin. Then you had in between that into the 40s and the 50s where you had white flight and all basically predominantly Caucasian population moved to the county because they were saying you're providing all this. So how do you end up where you are now with vacancy and dilapidated houses and all of that? It really, you got to understand the history back then to know how to get to where you're going. Right. So when we talk about 20, 30 years, yes, you're looking at that. But I look back, I went to Morgan State in 99. Only did a semester and left because of Baltimore at that time. To give you an idea, there was open air drug markets. A lot of people familiar with the Corner and the Wire and all of that and Homicide. These are all shows that have been shot in Baltimore, right? So when you look at that, that stuff was based off of real life there. That is not like Marlowe was a real person. That's not fake stories. So when I got there, there were open air drug markets. Literally, the police would sit on one side of the street while the drug dealers served on the other side of the street. I was speaking to my sister-in-law who's in the counseling area, and she used to counsel individuals in the space up in Baltimore. And in fact, there were certain days of the week where her boss would be like, we can't go this particular day because these are the days that the dealers serve. You would go to Baltimore and literally the dealers would just throw out bags up in the air, let people sample the product so they can continue serving. So this is where you're coming from.
Crazy.
This is kind of like they covered this. I think I know what you're talking about. They covered this in The Wire, where they had to open. It was basically you can't be arrested for serving in this area.
Exactly.
So that is a dope. There's a lot of references to pop culture and the stories you sent. Yeah.
I think when you understand the history, then you start to understand how you're going to get where you need to go. So when people say, it was 20, 30 years ago, we were still coming out of a generation that unfortunately was still part of that heroin epidemic. We are finally one generation removed from that. One generation removed from that. How are we one generation removed from that? Meaning that you had crack babies and heroin babies that were born in the 90s, 80s and the 90s.
Right.
Now, those individuals have kids where they're not dealing with those same addictions. They're dealing with some of the same systemic issues as a community, but they're not facing those same addictions.
Right.
So now that they're not facing those same addictions, you're dealing with individuals that have a clearer mind that you can start dealing with the social change now. And that's where we are. We can start dealing with the social change. So Baltimore is making a big push to deal with social change as well as starting to revitalize from the government top down, and not just at the city level, and not just the state level, at the federal level down. So that's why there's a good possibility that is going to make some serious progress this time. And it's making serious progress. Baltimore has always hovered around 16,000 plus vacant units. I was just at a conference last week with Alice Kennedy, who is the head of Department of Housing in Baltimore. And Baltimore's at 13,536,000 vacant houses right now. But it's the first time it's been there since 2018.
Yeah, it's dwindling.
It's coming down.
Yeah, so
it's still a lot,
right,
but it's coming down.
So you want to get in now if you're gonna get in.
Yeah, and you it's not a thing. A lot of people they look at this and they're like, oh, I want to get in, I want to do this, I want to do that. You have to come in with a strategy,
right?
Because it's still a lot of vacancy. It's still a lot of challenging neighborhoods. It's still a lot of challenges in Baltimore, as we all know.
Yeah.
It's block by block, but there are beautiful parts of Baltimore all over. I mean, you get up into Roland Park and Charles Village, you get over to Canton, Federal Hill. There's areas where you have $1 million houses in Baltimore City, and people don't People don't realize this. People don't realize this. But because all they see
is row houses
that's boarded up. But again, Baltimore is huge. It's a metropolis.
They have a visual depiction like The Wire.
Yes.
That's all it is.
That's all it is. That's all it is. So when you think about the size of the city, for those that are that have ever been to DC, think of DC, Northern Virginia, and Prince George's County put together, and that's the size of Baltimore City. It's that big. So when you start thinking of the size of that and the scope, 13,000 houses, yes, it's a lot, but it's not like the whole city's boarded up.
Yeah, exactly.
I would notice that because I used to do a painting business in college.
Yeah.
And we would have to go literally door to door.
Yep.
And my neighborhood just happened to be the one with the highest like salaries in all
Right.
of Baltimore. And I think it's like the Charles Village area.
Yep.
And it's crazy because like it changed my perspective because when I was doing Uber, I would have to go through every neighborhood.
Right.
And there you could literally see everything from like Edgewater where like you still have the heroin and drug addicts all the way to, like you said, the Charles Village where it's like the $1 million homes. But I noticed that some of the biggest issues is food deserts and amenities and things to do because the property you showed me, the 12 unit, which they actually completed, there's no like real live grocery store there. They have corner stores there.
And I have a question to go on top of that as well, because food deserts are a huge problem, not just in Baltimore, but in every urban city. But you said something about they're changing like this. They're trying to change like the social climate in Baltimore. So like food deserts. Like, what are some of the social laws that they're putting together now?
So one of the major things that you're seeing right now is a big push for food halls.
Right.
So there's several food halls under development right now. And the food halls are a great opportunity because you're not only giving a small business the opportunity to have a space, but you're also giving the community to have options as far as what they can consume as food.
Wait, a food hall like
So
Like,
think about our house.
All small like restaurants or come together and under one roof. You have different options.
So you'll have anywhere from 10 to 15 different food options under one roof, which is a huge opportunity, right?
Yeah.
But in addition, they have grants for corner stores to be able to offer more. They have grants for grocery stores. They're building a new grocery store, where the project you're alluding to in Reservoir Hill. So at the bottom of the hill where they're doing the major redevelopment, it is finally skyward. I'm really excited to see it off of North Avenue. That project is supposed to have some type of grocer there. Reservoir Hill is one of the better neighborhoods. I mean, in Bolton Hill, you come down to houses that are priced anywhere from about $500,000 up to about 1.2. One of my projects is over in Marble Hill right there. That's really taken off. And then Reservoir Hill is right above that.
Right.
They also are really embracing the arts throughout Baltimore because a lot of the individuals in Baltimore, they may not have necessarily the intellectual insight to do some of the high-end jobs, but they're very creative. Like it's a talented musical city. I've gone to several plays in the city. It's tremendous, right? So at Drew Hill Park, they're putting an amphitheater. But let's just think about like infrastructure. It's been a major issue. It's been a major issue. So, people don't understand why all the construction is going on at Drew Hill Park and some of the other reservoirs around. The big issue has been that the water supply in Baltimore was wide open. Somebody could come by with salmonella and literally just dump it in the water supply.
Another Flint real easy.
Exactly. So they have literally covered all of the water supply finally with steel and concrete cages to protect it, which is increasing the water supply. But there's systematic issues. They sell water to Baltimore County. The water for Baltimore County comes from Baltimore City. They sell the water to Baltimore County at a lower price than citizens in Baltimore City pay for water.
Yeah, because I heard that there's a lot of times where they extrapolate the wealth from the city to go into the county.
Yep.
Like they did it with HBCUs a lot.
Exactly.
Where they took the money and then funneled it to, I think there was like a big like conflict with that,
Yeah.
like a lawsuit where like the HBCUs in the area were like, yo, y'all are funneling money to University of Maryland, to UMBC, and you're taking the money away from us.
It was a major lawsuit that just occurred. And, for those in Baltimore City, Morgan State's campus is undergoing a major expansion.
Building.
housing building, and around there, it's improved the neighborhood significantly. But one of the big reasons why, it was determined that the state had withheld about $50 million from there, Bowie State, Compton State. So all these universities in the area that were HBCUs were getting money withheld from them. So now that money has been infused, Compton State has done some beautiful things to their campus. They haven't expanded as much as Morgan, but they're being able to improve that area as well.
Didn't they just get a grant too, or are they working on that?
Yeah, a lot of them are working on grants and fellowships now, where they're able to pull in a lot more money. They're trying to do more national and international research style projects. But all of these types of things are areas of opportunity. You think about Johns Hopkins. Johns Hopkins controls so much of the city. I mean, they're spread out all over the city, multiple medical campuses, the college campus.
And they own the most real estate.
And own the most real estate. So think about that. But you have to have those types of things in a city.
Right.
Baltimore has more hospitals per capita than most major cities. It's hospitals all over the city. You know, so you got a lot of opportunity there. And I'm very excited about the possibilities. I think Brandon Scott, the current mayor, is very insightful. He's young. He can be in office for a while. I think he has not just great ideas. I think he's implementing great things. Crime is decreasing continuously, finally. So
I think he's going to be a Democratic rising star. He's going to be national before, so especially right now.
Yeah.
The situation out there. As a way to know what we're talking about, the Baltimore Bridge just collapsed yesterday.
yeah, the Francis Scott Key Bridge.
So just so that like a timestamp what we're talking about. But I have another couple things you just said. Like in terms of that, Baltimore's also been like they say it was like a leading tech center now. Like a lot of tech jobs are coming to Baltimore.
It is. I've heard that. I do challenge these things.
Okay.
Though. And one of the reasons I challenge them is because I'll never forget when the Amazon major distribution center, this place was 3 blocks long when they started building it, right? It's huge. And Baltimoreans were so excited. Jobs are coming, jobs are coming, jobs are coming. One of my good friends and electricians, Tony, was working, putting in the electrical. He was like, man, the amount of wire we're running in this place. And as they were completing it, he said, man, 90% of this plant is going to be automated.
Yep.
So when I heard that, I was like, no, them jobs not coming. So, and then what occurred was there was a union uprising where they was pushing to have unions and they were fighting against workers in Amazon having to do all this walking and stuff, not knowing that Amazon had foresight of this. And they were working on robots to go physically go down the aisle, pick up stuff off the shelf, and bring it back to packers where they could eliminate all these people walking. So it was a lot less jobs than ever was anticipated. So Amazon built this big, beautiful plant. I was over that way about 2
Curtis
weeks
Bay,
ago.
correct?
Yeah, exactly. And it didn't bring as many jobs as they was thinking.
Yeah.
When you think about, hey, it's a tech center. Yeah, I don't know. A lot of people working from home right now.
Right.
You know, I live in downtown Baltimore, so it's kind of like it's a lot of vacant space. The commercial sector, not only in Baltimore but around the country, they're trying to figure out what to do with all this empty space. You know, so you have to have things that are going to attract individuals. Now, I have an idea what can do it, but we'll see if they really proceed and do it.
Pivoting in a different direction, you're in your early 20s and you're just flying past everybody. What's going through your mind in that moment? Because like a lot of times people want to get to that position, but they don't realize that on both sides, like if you don't have money, it's stressful. But when you do have money, it's stressful. And you were going through that with your was she your wife at the time or?
No, it wasn't my wife. It was my son's mother. But you know, I think the biggest challenge for me, and it's a challenge that I still face today, right? And as you all move up the ladder, you're going to face it as well. You're going to lose friends along the way. You're going to lose people that's close to you along the way because you're going to outgrow them. And fortunately, I went to a very close-knit school where it's like a brotherhood, and a lot of those brothers are still here today. But even a lot of those relationships outside of that, those individuals didn't know how to relate to me anymore. So as you lose those situations, and even my son's mother, I mean, she wasn't maturing at the same pace as me, which led to kind of us having to go our separate ways to allow her to grow. So you have to give other people the opportunity to grow. One of my close friends, Chris, he was one of the ones that saw it. My father helped him buy his first at 20. Even to this day, he's one of the top realtors in the area. We're very close. But he was one of the few that could see it. And that was like, yo, I'm in. He moved down to Florida with me for a while, and we was doing it down there together for a while, you know. So, and we met in high school.
Right.
But it's one of those things where when you sit back and you look and you say, hey, okay, this is a situation where I got to keep the people around me that's going to help me grow. But the individuals that's not, I'm going to have to pull back.
Right.
I'm going to have to pull back.
Okay.
But it gave me so much experience in so many different areas. It allowed me to be able to venture off in a different paths.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So let's kind of we've learned like an overview of how you got here, but let's kind of pivot to how you got back home, Baltimore real estate.
Yeah. So, like I said, my son's mother and I went our separate ways, and my son, he ended up staying with me. So I was a single father for many years, from the time he was about 2.5 until he was 12.
There's some out here.
Yeah, there definitely are. However, in Tampa, there was 3 major markets during the basically the mortgage and housing crash that occurred. Everybody thinks 2008. It did not start in 2008. It actually started in 2007. We could see it prior to that in 2006. But in 2007, it started in 3 major markets. The 3 major markets were California, Las Vegas proper, and Florida. So to give you an idea, at that time I think I had 3 properties that were under renovation or just being completed. One was on the market. I'll never forget this. I had bought that property at $175,000, put a bunch of money into it. I had it on the market at $315,000. It was like 4 blocks away from the golf course, up in North Tampa near Busch Gardens. Beautiful house, set on 3 lots, had a boat pad on the side. I put a circular driveway in the front. Market started to crash. When the market started to crash, I'm chasing the market down from 315. Drop it, 275, 235,
Hate that feeling.
200.
Damn.
I go to 175, can't sell this property. I finally look at my son, my mom, saying, hey, you need to consider coming back to family, this and that. You just keeping baby boy away from us, all of that. So I was like, I started thinking, because like the market's dying at this point, right?
Right.
So I'll never forget, I packed him up. We packed up. I sold my work truck, packed up my BMW, and took the auto train back to D.C. One of my private lenders, I'd done a bunch of work with Glenn Coker over at Fort Brooke. Ended up going ahead and doing a deed in lieu, okay? A deed in lieu of foreclosure on several of the properties. And what that was basically me signing, instead of them going through the foreclosure, signing the properties over to him. He's like, Tony, we made a lot of money together. Sign these over to me. You walk away, keep your credit, you're good. I was like, okay. I'll never forget. A year and a half later, I went back and looked and every time I go back down to Tampa, I still go down to Tampa because my son is down that area, right? So I often ride by a lot of my properties when I'm down there. And Glenn ended up selling that property for $100,000, fully renovated.
Wow.
Good grief.
That's a 75K low. Well, 75K,
plus
we're not even
renovation.
account for holding costs.
Not holding costs, not my renovation costs, none of that. I lost $130,000 on that property. I lost $130,000 on that property because I was heavy cashing on that particular property.
And the joint started at 315.
Exactly.
Damn.
So when I say when you talk about learning lessons from failures, I'm a lot more conservative now, a lot more conservative because of that. But that's what brought me back to the area. And when I first came back, of course, in '08, because I came back at the end of '07, basically going into January, the whole world started to crash. I'm still doing loans at this point, and literally I was with 4 companies in the course of like 6 months, because the first company I was with, quote me a rate, they went up in smoke. I went to Apex Mortgage, they went up in smoke. I was with Mortgage IT, they were on Wall Street. They went down when Lehman Brothers went up in smoke. So it was one after another, and it was basically a situation where I had a bunch of money saved up, fortunately, and I just got out of real estate completely. And I ended up getting in the entertainment side, promotions again. Started working over at, everybody knows it at Dream, but it changed the name at that point to Love. So I was working with Mark and Taz over there doing promotions, and started a modeling agency. So I did that for like a year and a half, 2 years. Wow. Chris was getting his appraisals license and ended up calling me about a year and a half after me running a modeling agency and everything. And he was like, yo, it's an opportunity for us to start buying properties off the MLS. It's like, what you talking about? So we started looking at numbers. And at this time, you got short sales and you got foreclosures, tons of them. Heavy.
I remember.
So we started flipping like crazy.
Hold on. What's MLS?
So the MLS is the multiple listing system, okay? It's multiple listing service. What that is basically where real estate agents put properties to be able to share with one another that they're listed on the market for sale.
It's kind of like a Zillow for regular people like us, MLS.
Right, and this was pre-Zillow, but this is where we would log in and be able to see properties, right? I don't have my real estate license at this time, but I still have my father's access at that time. So I'm able to see these numbers, and we sit down, we look at them. We're like, yo, let's hop back in. So I hop back in, still running the modeling agency at the same time. So I'm doing pretty well with that. Not making a bunch of money, but having success placing models in various print ads and shows and stuff. And I was very close to John Blassingame, who's the publisher of Black Men Magazine at that time, and Hype Hair and several other publications. So I used to do a lot of shows with him up in Jersey. While there at a show, I met my business partner now. And Mr. Red, we're up there doing a show, and we connect on Facebook. So I come back, Chris and I doing a renovation over on Sheriff Road. And, or maybe it was Mitchville. I'm not sure which one we were doing at that time. But anyway, he sees it when I'm posting some content. I'm doing content back then on Facebook. He sees it, and he says, yo, you in real estate? It's like, yeah, dude, I bought my first house at 19.
Does this?
He's like, yo, y'all next project, I want in. I was like, where you in the business? He's like, yeah, I've been in it since like 2000. I was like, okay, cool. And I met several other people in the modeling industry that also was heavy into real estate. I was like, wow. So basically our relationship evolved from him just being an investor to where we are today. Chris, his appraisal business ended up really taking off. So we kind of went our separate ways as far as investing together.
Right.
But it became a scenario whereby Red kind of stepped in, and we're where we at today. I kind of got out of the DC marketplace in, I guess, about 2014, 2015. I got out of the DC marketplace. I was building condos throughout the city, doing a bunch of stuff, but kind of got out of the market because the numbers became so tight. If y'all remember, DC markets ran up like crazy.
Shot up.
Yes,
Crazy.
indeed, I
Like
remember.
almost 100%
Yeah.
shot up.
So 2012 was probably my last rehab in this area, and then I just went like heavy on the condo side.
Right.
So, doing basically converting 4-unit buildings, 2-unit buildings, single-family houses into condos, doing ground-up construction. Built my personal house in D.C. that was about 5,500 square feet, all of that good stuff. So as I did that, it was like, okay, this market is insane. These numbers is insane. Can't keep up. To give you an idea, I had one property in Upper Northwest, Kennedy Street. My carrying costs on that property each month was $23,000.
Golly.
I think I remember you telling me that one.
Yeah. So when you start looking at those types of numbers, where you're carrying a mortgage of like 1.8, you got private money on it. 1.8 mil private money, high interest rate. You're still getting, got to get materials and everything else. You got all these contractors relying on you. You got OSHA up your butt about ladders not being attached to stuff, all types of stuff, right? Because you're working in a different marketplace than a regular rehab.
For those who don't know, OSHA is an Occupational Safety Hazard Association.
Correct. So, for instance, we got one fine on site because a ladder wasn't tied off to the wall. That fine was $15,000.
Damn.
Goodness gracious.
Yeah, so that's just to give you an idea, a little background, right? So how did I get to Baltimore? So just to fast forward, I'm like, Red and I and one of our other partners, we flew out to Detroit to meet with one of my homegirls, Asia. Asia's big out there. She's a general contractor. Awesome person, right? So I was like, Asia, we coming out. We want to see what this market offers. So while we're out here, it took Red from New York and Rock, took them 2 flights to get to Detroit. Took me 2 flights. Basically, we had layovers. So we get out there, we looking around, and Red says something to me that's key. He says, dude, this ain't nothing but Baltimore. Why are we going to invest out here when we could do that? Baltimore is only 3 hours from me, and it's an hour from you. I was like, okay, cool. We'll explore it when I get back. Because I own property. I had a rental property up there previously. In fact, I think I shared with you about having the water meter line insurance because of that very property. So anyway, we came back, and immediately I started looking at Baltimore. And I was like, this is it. This is it. So we jumped in that market up there. We actually jumped in the market up there, I think it was 2019. We started really going hard looking into the market. Yeah. So, and it's been a major blessing to be able to move up there and to see, and I had done speaking engagements and participated with meetups and everything else with investors up there. I had a whole network of investors that I knew in Baltimore already from years of going back and forth up there, BWI meetup, and other stuff that I've been a part of, going to the Real Deal meetup. So it was a thing where it wasn't hard having contacts in the market, but I got there.
Okay. I got a quick question before you go, because it looks like you want to ask a question. You said the car holding costs were $23,000. For those who not familiar with holding costs, what exactly are holding costs?
So holding costs. So you got your actual mortgage payment. Okay. In that case, it was an interest only payment.
Right.
Okay. You got your taxes that you're paying. In addition to that, you also got your utilities, everything from your electric to your water that you're paying as well. And then you also have something called builder's risk insurance. Builder's risk insurance is something that you carry on the property while you're doing construction. Right. Okay, it's covering your materials and any liabilities that happen on the job site. So all of those costs are included in those carrying costs. Now you have other costs involved, but those are the main carrying costs that you have to factor in. The majority of that $23,000 was the interest only payment that I was making at that time.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Tony.
Yo, definitely gonna have to run this back.
one.
Definitely gonna have to run this back. Yo, Tony, you gave a lot of game. Man, you definitely delivered today. We appreciate that. We appreciate
Most
that.
definitely.
And definitely, definitely, if you're interested in more about the Baltimore market in particular, definitely follow Tony everywhere. Are you on YouTube as of yet?
We got 3 channels that's getting ready to launch. One for the Baltimore market. It's going to be under Be More Urban Life. We do have DC Urban Life launching and Philly Urban Life launching. All three of those channels are going to be launching within the next 3 to 4 weeks.
Tough.
It's a lot of content that's already being shot to educate you on the market.
Right.
So definitely tap in. And I look forward to connecting with you all. If you do connect with me on IG, go right to the link in the bio, and you're able to get a free 15-minute consultation. Anything real estate. Ask me anything real estate. I'm here to help.
Exactly. And we will leave everything. We'll put all his information in the description, and we'll also leave up his IG and stuff throughout the video as well. Look, if you're definitely interested in Baltimore, check out Tony. Check out, I don't want to plug them because they might be rivals. I'm sorry. But they did help me out as well.
Yep.
Definitely plug into Charm City Buyers.
Definitely. I support them.
They are really deep about in Baltimore. Really deep. And Alex, you have anything to close us out with? Anything you want to...
I know you got a quote.
Nah,
All right, well, if Alex doesn't have anything, again, thank you, Tony, for your gems.
Thank you, man.
Thank y'all for checking us out, and peace.
Baltimore can be built up, but at the same time, we've been waiting on Baltimore for 20, 30 years.